Welcome to Coffee with Kupke, a production of St. Paul Inside the Walls. Here on Coffee with Kupke, we grab a cup of coffee, at least we're claiming this is coffee. We sit with Monsignor Raymond Kupke, the pastor of St. Anthony's in Hawthorne, professor at Immaculate Conception Seminary, diocesan archivist. We sit with Monsignor Kupke to delve into the history of Catholicism in the Diocese of Paterson. My name is Father Paul Manning. I am the vicar for Evangelization for the Diocese of Paterson. And here I am with Monsignor Kupke. So grab your cup of coffee and let's jump right in. I'm going to take a sip. So, Raymond, we are around, Monsignor Kupke, I should be saying, we are around the year 1900, the turn of the century. And we have, I think, a lot of Italians who have come to our diocese. In 1900, you say 1/4 of the Italians were practicing their faith. So here's my question. At the turn of the century, does the church in our diocese become predominantly Italian?
I would not say predominantly Italian, but it's the largest ethnic group. And I think probably by today, of the European groups, it is the largest, being outflanked by the Latinos. But at one point, they were a heavy presence in just about every parish in the diocese. And
so you have 1/4 of them practicing their faith. So, 3 out of 4 are not.
Right.
What's that about?
You have a group from northern Italy who basically are anti-clerical. And then from also the old papal states, you have another anti-clerical group. So for many of them, this was something the women did, not the men.
And the anti-clericalism came about as a result of?
Papacy being the stoppage from Italy developing as a country.
Oh, okay.
The papal states at the time was considered to be one of the 2 most poorly run countries in Europe.
Oh.
Them and the Ottoman Empire. Oh. And they both collapsed,
okay.
in this period. But in the papal states, you could not hold an office. There was no civil service. It was the clergy.
Oh.
So
sometimes people resented it, yeah.
Sometimes people without a vocation would enter the clergy simply for the security of being postmaster.
Okay, wow. So I have Northern Italians versus Southern Italians. There's a kind of a difference in their religiosity, yes?
Yes, yeah. The Northern Italians are by and large, do not emigrate. It's relatively rare to find a family in New Jersey that traces its roots to Milan or Venice or Turin,
okay.
Because these places are economically vibrant. And if you think of what we import from Italy, all the stuff that we like to import all comes from northern Italy, whether it's automobiles or tires or food or fashion or wine. It's all,
northern,
basically Bologna North.
Okay.
Southern Italy is a poor agricultural area where in many of these communities, a family may have been farming the same farm for 400 or 500 years. It's been subdivided each time, over-farmed.
Yeah.
So it's a poor area. There's no work and a very likely source of immigration.
Okay.
But the Italians came over hesitantly. Their immigration is different than most of the other European countries in 2 ways. they would come, only the men would come, work for a couple of years, go back, then maybe a few years later come back again. Maybe on the third time they would decide to bring their family over.
Oh.
So it skewers records of Italian immigration because some of them immigrated 2-3 times.
Got it.
So that's what they call birds of passage. They'd come over, work, make a few bucks, go back.
Yeah.
So that becomes problematic. And the other thing is that they immigrated by neighborhoods and towns. So, one guy would come over, and then ultimately his cousins and neighbors would come over. So
you're having neighborhoods of people from the same place in Italy.
There are families in East Hanover that have lived near each other for 300 years.
Yeah.
Because they came over from the same towns in Italy over to Newark.
Yes.
And then after the Newark riots, they moved to East Hanover. So some of those families have known each other for generations.
Yeah. So you have a term, campanalismo.
Campanalismo, yeah.
Which literally means...
A campanile is a church bell tower.
Yeah.
And basically, again, you have to remember that Italy as a country does not exist yet. Because of the Papal States in the middle of the peninsula.
Separate kingdoms, yeah.
So the Italians do not have a sense of being Italian. They have, for example, if we were in Mongolia and they asked where we're from, we would start with the United States.
Yeah.
And work our way down, all from
New Jersey.
Yeah. The Italians at this point are working the other direction. I'm from Apulia.
Yeah.
I'm from, but not from Italy. So when they come over, the campanalismo thing in the history of immigration is that basically your people are the ones who hear the same church bells that you do on Sunday.
Yeah, that's
everybody else is an outsider.
Yeah, got it.
So when you see immigration, like when people talk about the Little Italy sections of the big cities, if you really scratch the surface, it's really like little Genoa, little Rome, little Naples, because each street is basically neighborhood moved from.
Yeah. There, you have an interesting little section in which you designate Paterson, or someone designates Paterson as the cradle of anarchy at this time.
Yes,
so what's that about?
Well, because the silk workers went on strike, and basically it was felt that it was Italian anarchists from North Italy that helped to produce this strike. There was an assassination attempt in this period, I guess, against the King of Italy.
Yes, Gaetano Bresci.
Yeah, they actually came to Paterson to do an inquiry, an inquest, because they felt that one of the guys had fled over here. So, yeah, it was a very feisty group. Yeah, in some cases from Italy.
You said that I don't know if you're talking about northern or southern towns, but the immigrants were unaccompanied by clergy.
Yeah, more so than any other group.
The clergy were not immigrating to this country.
You get into trouble for saying these things, but basically some of the southern Italian clergy were not zealous enough to follow their flocks in immigration, unlike the other groups.
Yes.
So this becomes a problem. This is why many of the Italian parishes in the New York metropolitan area originally were handled by religious orders, the Scalabrinians and the Capuchins in particular, because the native clergy are not coming over.
Do we still have Scalabrinians?
Yes, but not in New Jersey.
Okay, I haven't heard of that one before.
Yeah. Well, that group was formed entirely to. That group was formed around the same time as Mother Cabrini's to work with Italian immigrants.
Okay.
So, they're not coming, and it will become a big enough problem that the bishops in the Northeast will start to meet and over this issue, like they're afraid that they're going to lose the Italians to the Protestants because they're uncatechized and nobody wants to work with them.
So you just brought up a point that I was going to make. Is it fair to say, I was struck by the similarities between this wave of Italian immigration and some of the things that we see with our Latino Hispanic population today. Yeah, namely,
if you don't think the bishops have learned anything in 100 years, you compare what they did back then to...
Yeah, so here are the similarities that I saw in reading about this. The Italian immigrants were not used to supporting their parishes because they were state-funded, I guess?
Yes.
And that's similar for many of our Hispanic and Latino populations, right? They come from places where the church is state-funded.
Right.
Second, they had particular popular devotions, right? As do our
only outdone by the Poles in that era.
Okay. The established population was uncomfortable with them,
yes.
Right? Uncomfortable with the Italians, and we see that with the attitude toward our Hispanic and Latino communities sometimes. Right. And the fear that they would be evangelized by Protestants.
Yeah.
And in fact, I think that happens a lot in our country.
Yeah. In the Newark diocese, there was a point where the Italian population was served by the cream of the crop in the New clergy, because anybody who went to study in Rome, to the North American College, their first assignment would be in one of the Italian parishes.
Got it.
Because they could speak Italian. Like
yes.
Bishop John Doherty, the later auxiliary bishop, president of Seton Hall, his only pastoral assignment was at De Montevergine in Garfield as a newly ordained priest because he could speak Italian.
Yes. So I was surprised to find out that Sacred Heart in Clifton was originally Italian. Is that right?
Still is on paper.
Okay. So in connection with Sacred Heart in Clifton, maybe you want to talk about the two Ciancis?
Well, they're not connected to Sacred Heart.
Oh, they're not? I'm
that's
sorry.
St. Michael's.
Yeah, all right. So my notes, I blew it. But anyway, let's talk about them. Italian clergy, correct? Mm-hmm.
We were lucky. Felice Cianci comes over. He was originally, I believe, a Scalabrinian.
Oh, okay. I have heard of them.
But he comes over and basically takes over starting off St. Michael's in Paterson. One of the interesting details in this immigration, if you read the history of the cathedral in Paterson, it mentions that Dean McNulty graciously loaned the Lady Chapel to each wave of immigrants as they came over, the Poles, the Syrians, until they could get on their feet and,
And that Lady Chapel is not very big.
Well, if you read the parish histories of St. Michael's, St. Anne's, St. Stephen's, St. Cashmere's, they have a different take on the same story. They say that miserable Irish priest would not let us in church because we didn't give enough money.
Oh, wow. So they had to go to that chapel.
Forced us to go into that miserable chapel until finally we got tired of it and built our own place.
Wow, okay. So there's two sides to every story.
There's two sides of every story, right?
Yeah.
But this is also when what is really a kind of an American thing. I keep saying I'm going to write an article about this someday, but
it's probably in the footnotes.
Yeah. Exchanging church property. Like many of these ethnic groups start out by buying a Protestant church.
Yes.
Like St. Michael's buys the Cross Street Methodist Church, as the downtown areas are emptying of Protestants, they sell their church to whoever's coming in next, and
Yeah.
And so, it works out very well.
I actually think you have a photo of a little wooden structure and then the big twin towers of
Yeah.
St. Michael's behind it.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
So St. Michael's is pastored by Felice?
First, briefly, by Felice Cianci.
Yes.
Then his nephew, Carlo Cianci.
Yeah, so how does that happen?
Well, the same way Italian immigration, it's all family.
Felice's
La
here.
Familia.
Yeah. And
So he brings his nephew over.
who's a priest at this point?
Who's a priest. A small diocese, if I remember the story correctly, the diocese that he's come from, even today, only has 60,000 Catholics in southern Italy, in Basilicata, one of those regions. And he's like the third curate in one of these parishes, and there's nothing to do, and he's frustrated. So Uncle Felice says, come over.
Yeah.
So, and of course, the rest of the family, too. His family is still present in Paterson and in the area. But he comes over then, and he spends like a half century.
At St.
He
Michael's?
starts out, he's the first pastor, I believe, at Blessed Sacrament.
Okay.
And then when Felice leaves St. Michael's, he succeeds him there and becomes
Legendary.
yes, because he's the one who helps the Salesian sisters come over. Their first mother house is on the parish property in downtown Paterson. They run his school. If you remember the many times that we were in Sacred Heart Center in Newton, the main
Salesian
altar
place
is donated by Carlo Cianci.
Yeah, I forgot that.
So there.
So that's the nephew.
Yeah. So that was a whole.
Well, I have a note here that Felice knew Don Bosco. Is that right?
Yeah.
Personally?
Yes.
Wow.
Sure, because Don Bosco would be the late 19th century in Italy.
So I don't know if you can pull this off the top of your head, but Felice dies around when?
I don't remember when Felice dies.
How about Carlo?
Not until the 1960s.
All right, so I was a summer seminarian with Monsignor Joseph Gallo at St. Philip's in Clifton, and he would tell stories about Carlo Cianci.
His Cianci stories were legendary.
Do you remember any of them?
Oh, I do. The funniest one to me is that Joe Gallo, at a very young age, was made a Monsignor. Basically, Bishop McNulty, made the heads of all the diocesan departments Monsignors. So Joe was in charge of continuing education of the clergy.
Okay.
And on the strength of that, at like 40, he was made
a Monsignor,
a chaplain, papal chamberlain. Joe thought that this meant he was about to be made a pastor, and he brought it up with McNulty, and McNulty says, no, we don't have anything open. It's just, you're heading of the department. It seems, So he's still curate to Cianci.
Oh, boy.
Cianci's take on this is that because he is the highest level of Monsignor, he's a protonotary apostolic,
Yes.
that they have run out of ways to honor him.
Oh.
So
they make his curate.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow.
Exactly. Cianci's take on it was that Joe was made a Monsignor so that he could be the only pastor in New Jersey that had a Monsignor as a curate.
Wow. Wow. And Cianci was a big personality, yes?
Yeah. Yeah. He was very much the father of a family,
But a strict father of a family, or
yeah, but
authority.
also he helped an entire 2 or 3 generations of Italian immigrants become American, get an education through St. Michael's School. In my lifetime, I've lived with Joe Gallo, Joe Ferrito, who came from that parish.
Okay.
And now my 93-year-old weekday altar server, Gene Morabito, comes from this parish. And between them, the Cianci stories are wild, but at the same time, very respectful. This was the paterfamilias of.
He was a character.
He was absolutely.
A street is named after him. Yes,
the street that St. Michael's is
Chauncey Street.
Chauncey Street.
Yeah.
He also had a long-standing feud with the pastor of St. Mary's in Paterson, his neighbor,
who would have been
John Brady.
Okay, an Irish guy.
Right. So, as the Italian, this is America, Chauncey is doing such a good job educating them, giving them the tools to move up. So they're moving up into St. Mary's Parish, into the Totowa section of Paterson. And, Chauncey and Brady are fighting, family by family.
Yes.
A family will decide to be married in St. Mary's, and Chauncey will scream,
you're taking my people.
You're taking my people, and Brady said, but they live here. It's back and forth. So finally, Chauncey, you'd love to get him on this microphone and get his take on this, but he does an end run around Brady that nearly gave Brady a heart attack.
An end run around Brady, that sounds very contemporary. Okay, go ahead.
Well, basically, because St. Michael's is an ethnic parish, it has no boundaries. It serves the Italians in Paterson wherever they are.
Okay.
So he builds a chapel on the other side of Brady's church, St. Gerard's.
Oh, my. Wow.
That was originally a mission of St. Michael's. And
oh, my gosh. Yeah. So when you look at the geography at St. Michael's, then you have St. Mary's, and then beyond, he built St. Gerard's.
Moving up towards Totowa and up towards Halden and everything. He built St. Gerard's surrounding Brady.
Yeah, it's like the Wild West almost.
Oh, yeah. I mean, this is an era when men were men.
Yeah. Let me just we're going to end with this, and next time we're going to talk about the polls. We're going to get to the polls, but Is Chauncey on the level of McNulty? I mean, nobody's on the level of McNulty, but you have Farmer, you have McNulty. We've talked about. Is he one of the greats?
Yes. Yeah. In terms of endurance, in terms of longevity.
Yeah.
And in terms of pastoral service. Really. The other one in this period who we have not spoken about at all, and kind of succeeds McNulty toward the end of McNulty's, McNulty was getting into his 90s when he died.
Yeah.
But Anthony Stein,
okay,
who died a little bit young, but Stein helped to negotiate the silk strike. He was the president of the Paterson Chamber of Commerce at one point.
Okay.
He kind of picked up the
mantle.
The municipal presence mantle that McNulty had.
Okay. So next time we will continue our discussion of the waves of immigration and how they impacted the church in the Diocese of Paterson.
Good.
Let's leave it there. I want all of you who are listening or watching to make sure that you keep an eye out or an ear out for the next episode of Coffee with Kupke. In order to stay on top of new releases, make sure you follow or subscribe wherever you're listening. And if you are on YouTube, please do drop a like and hit the bell for notifications. While you're at it, make sure to check out the other shows produced by the diocese. Those shows are Beyond the Beacon, hosted by Bishop Kevin Sweeney and Jay Agnish, our Director of Communications, and the Paul Street Journal, hosted by Brian Hansberger and Freddie Garcia. I want to give a special thanks to Joe Ginexi, our sound and visual engineer, Caitlin Ferrari, who's involved in pre- and post-production, and Freddie Garcia, who's helping out with this podcast in addition to doing his own. With all that said, I just want to thank you for joining us in Coffee with Kupke. Keep making Catholic history in the Diocese of Paterson.